It's a brand new Friday here, of course, bright blue outside, and of course, Kendall, today the focus is on a very important issue. It's Women's Month, right?
Yes.
And the focus is on 1 in 5 South African women older than 18 has experienced physical violence in this country. And that's why we're conducting this poll.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to find out from you on this very important month, on this very important day, what do you think? Do you think men take the fight against women abuse seriously?
Let's take a look at what the poll's suggesting there. 142 votes in, 54% of you are saying no, men do not take female abuse seriously.
Yeah, 46% say yes, they do. Let's see what's being said on this very hot topic. It's key that we find out what's being said. I'm sure there are lots of comments on this from you.
Nazim Khurudwam says, I take it seriously because I think of my mother, sister, my cousins, who are all women.
Alex Mutapo says, I personally am against women abuse. I hate abusers.
Well, those are some of your comments. Please keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. But we're also focusing on the Invest in a Girl Child and Empower a Young Woman. It's a campaign that's responding to challenges facing girl, children and young women here in Gauteng. And that was necessitated by the sudden spate of killings against women and children in South Africa, Kendall.
No, absolutely. And we want to find out from you, what do you think we should do to make gender-based campaigns more effective? How do we do that?
So, this one here from Alex says, start from our homes and our counterparts. Women should help us to finish that violence, especially against them as women.
Nkutalo says it's hard because we don't know what gets into the minds of those who mostly abuse women.
Keep them coming, people. We'll read them as we continue, but it's, of course, a big sporting weekend ahead, Kendall, and that's why we said we need to ask a question that's general so everybody can answer to it, right?
100%. I mean, just last night, overnight, we heard that Neymar and PSG have broken the world transfer record, 222 million euro Barcelona got for Neymar. Neymar is literally going to be earning 473 million rand a year. That's 1.3 million rand a day, people. 1.3 million rand at 25, this guy's going to be earning. And we've also got the Lions playing in the final,
yes.
Proteas playing. We've got a massive weekend ahead of us.
And of course the IAAF.
And the IAAF kicks off tonight. We've got a whole lot of medal prospects that we're looking at as South Africans.
So that's why we're asking you a general question. We want to find out from you, what are you looking forward to from the weekend of sports? This one coming from the Sultan says, victory of the Lions rugby team, Ayatollah El Sultan.
Atini says, Vodacom Super Rugby, lots of beer, cocktails, and a little bit of a mellow, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. So those are some of your comments. Please keep coming. It's a big sporting weekend, people. But let's get down to business and take a look at your headlines. Deputy Minister of Police Bongani Mkongi says that they have sufficient evidence to arrest the suspects who killed the singer and actor Dumi Masilela. Former Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas has called on South Africans to join efforts to protect the country's fiscal integrity. And the South African government has wished Rwanda well ahead of the staging of the presidential elections today. Very important elections there in that country. We'll keep you posted on that story. But first, let's find out from Kendall what's happening on the sporting front.
Elvis, I was just going to finish off. There's 9 million rand a week. 9 million rand a week.
Yes.
If I were earning that at 25, I don't know if I'd carry on playing longer than just 1 year.
No, 1 month, that's fine.
1 month is enough, isn't it?
Yes.
Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today. First up, Neymar's world record 222 million euro move to PSG is completed as the French club confirms the Brazilian superstar has signed a 5-year deal, earning him an estimated 30 million euro per year.
Look at that start from Akani Simbine. Tanda Roto's chasing. Simbine's going away. Roto's cutting there. It's Akani.
South Africa's strongest team ever will be in action from today. The creme de la creme of the athletics world descends on London for the 2-week IAAF showpiece.
Yes, he has by a metre. Watch the clock. 43.75, and that was a special race.
The belief is there always, regardless of who we played, Australian sides, New Zealand sides, the belief is, yeah.
When the Lions step out at Emirates Park tomorrow against the Crusaders, they'll be playing in their first final since Francois Pienaar lifted the Super 10 trophy in 1993 for Transvaal. Well, there's and more I've got for you later on in the sports bulletin around about 10:40. Do stay with Elvis as he's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. The Deputy Minister of Police, Bongani Mkongi, says they have sufficient evidence to arrest the suspects who killed the singer and actor Dumi Masilela. He was shot during an attempted hijacking in Tembisa, east of Johannesburg, on Wednesday night. He succumbed to his wounds yesterday morning.
A multi-talented artist, Idols catapulted him to national fame.
You lose out more than you gain when you're on a drug.
His popularity cemented by his role as a street kid in the soapy rhythm city. Masilela also thrilled soccer fans with his dribbling skills. He hung up his boots after a car crash. He tied the knot earlier this year. Colleagues and friends are inconsolable.
They've taken the rhythm out of Rhythm City. Secondly, to the industry, how many more should we lose? So we are losing all these young ones to crime. So to the industry, it's a great loss. We will never replace Tim Sane. He was one of a kind.
On Wednesday, fellow actor Jamie Bartlett was on set with Masilela, the last time he shared the stage with the actor.
I was working with Dumi yesterday on the set, so I was rolling the camera with him, and I leaned forward and I said, "You're doing good work, Dumi." He knew himself. He was humble. He was ambitious. He knew where he was going.
We've closed production for the next couple of days, and we've sent people home to try and process this.
As news of his death broke, fans took to social media. The arts industry is bidding yet another crime victim farewell. Manda Hlachwayo was shot and killed trying to defend women who had been robbed. Just 2 months on, another tragic loss. Gauteng police are investigating a case of attempted hijacking and murder. Trillian Play, SABC News, Johannesburg.
More than 100 billion rand may have been removed from South Africa's fiscus illegally. Former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan says that these are things that continue to happen in the country and no one is being held accountable. Accompanied by his former deputy, Mcebisi Jonas, Gordhan was speaking at a media gathering in Cape Town.
Since being relieved from their duties, they have been on a concerted campaign, making calls to ordinary South Africans to join them in protecting South Africa's fiscal integrity.
You have an economy that is in crisis. But they also point another important picture, which is the picture of state failure. And I think that has been very clear. And what the leaks and some of those who decided to say this or that and whistleblowers in different corners have done is to actually give substance to that.
Issues of the country's vulnerability and continuous downward trend have also been cited.
The fact that petty thieving, if you like, might have been happening at one or other level, that some major tenders were going wrong. And there were, as the SABC pointed out, various reports indicating that. But I think the earlier panel was asked, what's the number? I tried to ask a few people that question. What number will we attach to the scale at which things are happening? And some are saying that about 100 billion rands might have disappeared. 100 billion rands is approximately 8.5% to 9% of total government expenditure.
Gordhan remains a member of Parliament. Nomawetu Solwandle, SABC News, Cape Town.
The South African Police Service say they're still willing to negotiate with the striking emergency police 10111 operators. Their strike resumed yesterday after the wage talks deadlocked.
It's now back to the streets for thousands of 10111 emergency workers. It's a last resort, they say, frustrated by alleged delaying tactics by the South African Police Service aimed at resolving the impasse.
The issue of the going back to the strike, it's immediately after this media briefing. We will be serving
the letter to SABC management to inform them that everything which we thought it's going to be better and better for the workers, it's not coming right.
The labour dispute is still before the CCMA, and now there are claims that the employer is deliberately frustrating the process by rejecting all proposals tabled so far by the body's commissioner in hopes of finding a solution.
If it is not resolved by Wednesday, we intend to march in all the police headquarters, management, Minister of Police.
This means that all 22 of the country's 10,111 centres will be impacted. Non-essential clerical workers could possibly join the strike. Criselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.
News on the continent. Rwandans have started voting in a presidential election widely expected to return Paul Kagame to office for a third term. Some 6.9 million Rwandans have registered to vote in the poll. Special votes were held at the Rwandan embassy in Pretoria yesterday. The South African government has wished Rwanda well ahead of the staging of the elections. Kagame served first as the vice president, although he was widely considered the de facto leader of the country, and was appointed as president by lawmakers in the year 2000. He was first elected to the post in 2003 and again in 2010 with more than 90% of the votes. Now, of course, a terrible history for that country. You remember just 1994, when we became a democratic country, there was absolute political tension. Hundreds and thousands of people killed in that country. Now, tensions is meanwhile increasing ahead of elections in Kenya next week, Tuesday. Voters in the East African nation of 49 million will pick a president, members of parliament and regional authorities. President Uhuru Kenyatta is facing off against the long-time rival, Raila Odinga.
Elections is a tight race pitting incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta against his political rival, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga of the opposition coalition, the National Super Alliance, NASA.
It's a critical election. I call it a watershed. It is the election that is going to see the maturity of Kenyan democracy. It will establish Kenya as one of the leading democracies on this continent.
19.6 million Kenyans are registered to vote in this year's elections. Kenya goes to the polls on Tuesday, and while some of the people behind me are actually traveling home to go and vote, others are leaving because they fear violence may erupt after their elections.
From the government end, the best we will do is to assure Kenyans that they need to stay calm, they need to stay where they are registered and voters, and they need to trust that we shall protect them.
Meanwhile, the African Union Elections Observer Mission to Kenya has warned that the exploitation of ethnic divisions during the campaign period has the potential to destabilize the East African nation during and after the polls. Sarah Kimani, SABC News, Kenya.
Now that's your news for now. We'll keep you updated on those stories as we progress today. But today the focus is on 1 in 5 South African women older than 18 has experienced physical violence. So we're asking you, we're conducting that poll. Do men take the fight against women abuse seriously? That's the question we pose to you. So far, 142 votes in. Now, look at this figure. 54% of you on the African continent and here in South Africa saying men do not take that fight seriously. 46% are saying, yes, we do. Jazz Kwepe says, yes, but 60% of men, not men are trash. Now, I can't understand this. Yes, but 60% of men, not men. Men are not trash, 60% of them. So says Kwepe. I think that's what he or she means. Michael Bigham says, yes, we do, because we have mothers and sisters at the end of the day that we love and want to protect. And why is men abuse not taken seriously in our country? Now, that's another question that I'm going to raise with some of our guests here this morning, because there's also abuse against men. So, these are some of your comments. Another one here from Kutalo. He says, yes, they do. We can't allow a few people to demolish the dignity of men. Let's leave it for now, because men have been called on to join the struggle against gender-based violence in this country. The Minister of Women in the Presidency, Susan Shabangu, made that announcement while marking the start of Women's Month at Tsedi Motsetso House in Hatfield, Pretoria on Tuesday. Women's Month is commemorated every August as a tribute to the more than 20,000 women who marched to the Union buildings on the 9th of August 1956 to protest about the extension of apartheid laws onto women. Lisa Vetten, she's a PhD fellow at Wits University and has worked in the field of violence against women for over 20 years, first as a counsellor and a paralegal, and then as a researcher, activist, and occasional drafter of policy. She joins us now here in studio. Very good morning to you, Lisa, and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis, and good morning to your viewers.
It is an ongoing fight, but why are we not winning this ongoing fight of men abusing women in this country?
You know, this is a centuries-old problem. Only as recently as 1993 was rape in marriage made a crime. So I think we have to realize that in many ways it's only in the last 20-odd years also that we've recognized domestic violence as being a problem. So it takes a long while to address these problems, and I think many of our attempts to address the problem are obviously informed guesses. We don't always know how well things are going to work. We're only going to see over time whether or not they are effective. So I think what this is telling us is that we perhaps need to have a little bit of a rethink and a critical reflection on what we've done over the last 25 years or so. Do we need to modify legislation? Do we need to take new approaches? I think it's a call for us to rethink where we are now and to rethink critically.
If you look at this poll that we're asking our viewers this morning, do men take the fight against women very seriously? Only 54% are saying no. They are not taking it serious. 46% are saying yes, they're taking it seriously. So what does that indicate? Because it's an issue that people can actually attest to. Yes, I mean, I think I would be in agreement that the majority of men don't take this seriously. There's still and I would say there are also some women who fall within that category as well. And those would be the group who think that, you know, women are always complaining. Why do we always have to put so much attention to women? Isn't it men who've actually lost out democracy? We have all this affirmative action for women, all these jobs reserved. You know, what about men and their unemployment? So I think there's still quite a lot of ambivalence by many men towards the idea of gender equality. Plus, I think you can also find very many men can still remain with very socially conservative ideas about women, but still say, no, they're opposed to violence against women. So, you know, especially when we start to use the language of protectionism, that men just need to be better protectors of women. That's not gender transformative, although the man may think he's making a statement that shows he takes women abuse seriously. What he's asking for is that we stay in the same position we always do, in which women are vulnerable and have a status like children and need to rely on men for protection, rather than us asking the questions of how do we create a more free society for women, how do we promote women's freedom rather than their protection. That was part of the article that you wrote because, and I quote, we need to dismantle the language of protectionism when we talk about violence towards women. Is that the case because we live in a patriarchal society? It very much is the case, and I think we run the real risk of working towards creating a kindlier, gentler patriarchy, a progressive patriarchy. We're not going to create a gender equal society, and that's what I think we need to be doing. So it is important to draw men in, but I think the language we use and how we ask men to get involved is what we need to think about critically. And I think the same goes for some women as well. We do need to get them to challenge their own attitudes, because there are unfortunately women who also do buy into this language of protectionism. What is that language you're talking about? It's not body language, is it? No, it's the language of, you know, we men need to just protect our women better. Women do not belong to men. They are not a possession. They're not your women. So I think that needs to go. Then protect our women. Why? Why do women need to be protected? Shouldn't we be creating a society that is safer for women? And also I think as long as we keep on using this language of protecting women and women are vulnerable, we ignore the violence that men experience, which is very significant. I mean, you had a clip earlier about the actor who was shot. Many men in this country are murdered, probably at the rate of about 6 or 7 times that women are, typically by other men. We also see very high rates of assault GBH. And as long as we continue to look at only women as victims, we ignore the violence that men experience. And that's a problem, because there's a lot of research that suggests that men's experiences of victimization often encourage them or play a role in them subsequently becoming violent. So we really do have to address men's violence, both as a means of addressing violence towards women as well as to each other. Now, to educate men, especially men in this country, about gender violence, there is so many campaigns. But the question then is, are they working? No, and I don't think a campaign really can, because they're short little sound bites. They're not really grappling, I think, with the difficulties that I think that come up when you're asking men to make the sorts of changes they do. I think for many men in this country, they've
you know, they grew up with the idea that they're going to be the breadwinner, they're going to be the head of the household, they're going to earn more money, and that women are going to be listening to them. And to be told that that's not the case can be very difficult to deal with, because it can leave a sense of, well, who am I if I'm not the head of the household? Where do I fit in? What's my place in society? How am I valued as a human being? Very often, I think, especially for men who are already violent, to stop being violent means sometimes having to change your entire family and all your friends.
Yes.
And, you know, a slogan doesn't help you manage that. So I think a lot of our interventions have been very shallow. They need to grapple much more seriously, I think, with the challenges to men when we ask them to change in such significant, transformative ways.
So where do we start, especially with men in this country?
You know, I think one of the ways we can start is to encourage men to start looking at their own experiences of violence, whether as victims or towards each other, and to start exploring how that makes them feel, because violence towards women and violence towards men comes from the same masculine phenomenon. And I think if one could get men to start thinking about how violence damages them too, maybe that could open up the way for a better understanding of how we need to deal with violence, not just towards women, but towards men, and that's actually in men's benefit to do so.
Where do men seek, shall we call it, assistance when they have this problem?
There are organisations like Lifeline. They have their Stop Gender-Based Violence Helpline, which is a national toll-free line, which they could call from anywhere in the country. Then you have services like Mosaic in Cape Town, which runs programs for men who have been using violence. There's also ADAPT in Alexandra that also runs programs. Sonke Gender Justice doesn't really run programs for men who are violent, but they could also refer people to where they could go.
Lisa, I thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio. Now, there you have it. That was Lisa Vetten, a PhD fellow at Wits University, giving you some tips, of course, if you have that type of problem. And that's why we're asking that question on the poll, as well as the question of the day. We focus on women. It's Women's Month, and we need to focus on women and, in general, violence. Let's take a look at what's happening on Twitter. And we start off with the protests that have caused havoc in and around Klipspruit this week. A bus was set alight yesterday. However, cleanup operations are underway today at #Klipspruit West. Now, we will speak to some of the organisers of that protest a little bit later in the programme, just after 11 o'clock, so you have to stay tuned. Then, South African Stephen McGowan. He was finally freed and returned home after being held captive by Islamic State for 5 years. #Steve McGowan. There you see him in that picture. And, of course, we wish him well. Tributes continue to pour in for Rhythm City talent, Dumi Masilela. You just heard the story a little bit earlier. He died during a car hijacking. Then moving further afield, Kenya. And let's see if we can get that picture. Kenya, can we move that picture? Kenya is preparing for general elections to be held on Tuesday next week. Crowds have been gathering in support of their top leaders, President Uhuru Kenyatta as well as Raila Odinga. Look at the numbers there, people. #Kenya elections. And Rwanda will head to the polls today. President Paul Kagame is eyeing a third term in the Rwanda elections. There he is in your picture right now. Our picture of the day comes from Elana Fonsel Meyer. And we'll see if we can move to that picture of the day. If we can get it out there. Let's see if we can take a look at the picture. There we go. All the best to Team SA competing in London at the IIIF World Championships. #proudly South African. Now, there's a lot of athletes out there, as you can see them in your screen. Kasa Semenya, Wade van Niekerk, and Akani Simbine. Lots of them can actually win gold, so we're waiting with bated breath as they take off there. Comment of the day comes from the IAAF org, who says, sprint star Wade Dreamer is asked whether he would rather win the 200 meters or the 400 meters. And he says, it depends which one you'll give me the world record in. There you have it. That's the one he'll take. Let's now take a look at what's happening in our courts today. And we start off in Pretoria, where the Dagga couple case challenging the government to legalize Dagga is expected to continue in the North Gauteng High Court. And if we move further afield, Middelburg, the coffin case trial is expected to continue in Middelburg. The two men accused of forcing victim Lotshwa into a coffin have pleaded not guilty to all charges. As you can see there, we'll keep you updated on those developments of these cases around the country. Let's throw forward. On Monday, big day, the show, we take a look at the motion of no confidence vote against the president, Jacob Zuma. And it will be, whether or not it will be a secret ballot, well, we'll find out. over either today or even on Monday. The Speaker still has to announce whether or not that's going to happen. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back and we continue our discussion on women and violence in the country.
Many saying that the former minister is now endorsing Ramaphosa as the next president. Campaign time, Prof?
Yeah.
So early.
Let's at least accept that people have a right to expressing themselves in terms of who they support.
But what is lacking very seriously is that there is no that leadership role that is played by the leadership to say, we haven't opened succession and let us deal with those that are campaigning openly, because we haven't opened it as the leadership of the ANC.
What we need in this country is that we need a ruling party or leading party to be able to engage with issues that affect the people.
Our people campaign openly. It weakens the organization. In fact, it makes the policies of the ANC even more popular.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor and catch on analysts unpacking top stories every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Now, on average, 1 in 5 South African women older than 18 has experienced physical violence, but the picture of gender-based attacks varies according to marital status and wealth. 4 in 10 divorced or separated women reported physical violence, as has 1 in 3 women in the poorest households. Now, it's a complex picture that emerges in Stats SA's 2016 demographics. Now, for more on this, we joined in studio by Lieutenant Colonel Evodia Ratsupa. She's the commander of the Springs SAPS Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit. And that's a mouthful. Thank you.
That's true.
Yes. Now,
Yes.
Welcome, Lieutenant Colonel. First and foremost, I would like to find out from you, if we look at the Domestic Violence Act, what does it entail and how does it protect women in general?
Okay, the domestic violence entails various, let me just put it in this way. Sexual Offences Act has got so many acts in, and it's so broad.
Yeah.
So it also entails domestic violence as well. But we, as FCS unit at Ekurhuleni East Springs, we are dealing with only sexual offense unit and all kinds of abuses against women and children. Yes.
Now, a study conducted by the World Health Organization in 2012 found that 65% of women in South Africa had experienced spousal abuse a year before the research was conducted. Since then, has there been an increase or perhaps a decrease in domestic violence since 2012?
Since 2012, I think it's much better. Since 2012. The reason being is because the unit was implemented. All the FCS units started in 2013, in 2010, and since then we are investigating all those cases against women and children. And I think it's much better because all the perpetrators are arrested and most of them are in jail.
In the region that you serve, especially Springs area, what have you seen? Has there been a drop in domestic violence?
In domestic violence, it's just in between. I cannot say it dropped or it's up, but it's just in between.
Now, much like with physical violence statistics, it is women in the lowest wealth quintile that experience the highest rates of sexual violence. Why do you think that is the case? Is it just because they are poor and they cannot protect themselves?
It's just because they are scared they are submitting themselves. Not to say they're poor per se, but some, okay, it can be they are poor because they're scared to report any crime against women, because some of them, they're scared to say, my husband is doing this and that, and some of the kids are scared to report these cases, and as a result, the perpetrators are going on and on with the rape cases, and that's when that we are receiving lots of cases, rather than if one can be raped and report it immediately. But in that scenario, since we are doing the awareness, we are visiting the schools, we are doing the talks at schools, it's much better. Yes, they're coming forward now into bits and pieces.
It's always been said in the past that even if you do have cases opened by women after being raped or being abused by their spouse, that they would come back after a day or two and say, no, the case cannot go on. Are you finding that as well?
That is true. Women out there, they're opening the cases after they've been abused, and as a result, they're coming to us to say they just want to withdraw the cases because there is no one who are supporting them financially. So what we are doing, we don't allow that. But as a result, they will go to court just to submit their withdrawals and all those things. But what I like now, we're working hand in hand with the prosecutors. So we don't allow that, because once the abuser is out, he's going to commit another offense, and we're going to receive lots of cases. So it's better while they're inside. Yes.
And have you found that the rate of people being prosecuted has gone up since you've implemented this?
Since FCS unit is in place, lots of abusers are convicted. We've got lots of life sentences, lots of 25 years imprisonment. Yes.
Now, the unit that you're talking about, how effective is it?
It is very effective. I'm talking of Springs. It's very effective. Yes.
And countrywide, do you have a sense?
Excuse me?
Countrywide, do you have a sense how effective the unit is?
Yes, countrywide, we've got 22 units, and all FCS members are dedicated to do the same job that I'm doing. And we
Which
know
is what, by the way?
Yes.
Which is what? What is the job that you currently do?
Investigation of crime against women. Yes, we've got 22 units in Gauteng, and all of them are doing the same thing that I'm doing in Springs. Yes.
Shouldn't there be more of these units available, especially at police stations, which is fairly busy? A number of people have been complaining that they can't find these units everywhere.
No, that is not true. The units is there 24 hours. We've got members on standby 24 hours. Any case that has been reported, there is member from FCS who's attending to that case with an immediate effect, and the victim is taken to the doctor. And we are taking over investigation same time.
During this Women's Month, Lieutenant, what sort of message are you giving out there to women?
The message I can just give to the women out there, I just want them to be brave enough to come forward and report any abuse against them. They don't have to compromise as to say, my husband is doing this and I cannot just take him to jail. They must come forward and report any abuse against them. And there is nobody who's got right to deprive their rights. But another message I can say to them, they must be careful out there. We've got monsters, we've got men who doesn't care about women, and they must make sure that wherever they're going, they must go, they must let their family know where they are. And the issue of visiting the pubs during the night, it's not, it's whereby the abusers are looking there to follow them up. So it's better for them to be where they are sure that they are safe indoors. Yes, but at the same time, the abusers, these sexual offenses happened indoors. So those that are raped in the house, they must come forward and just report so that you can be able to reduce the number of the perpetrators out there.
Just to follow up on that, have you found that it's more husband and wife, girlfriend, boyfriend that these abusers are coming from, or are these people that don't know each other?
No, don't know each other is so few. Most of them, they are boyfriend, girlfriends, and the women and the wife, the women and the husband in the houses.
Lieutenant, thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio.
Thanks very much.
Now that was Lieutenant Colonel Evodia Ratsupa. She's the commander of the Springs SAPS Violence Center and Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit. She says that unit is working and it's available everywhere. So women, if you do have a problem, go to a police station, find that unit. They should be available for you. Let's now take a look at what is happening on our Facebook page. The South African Police Service, SABC, says that they're still willing to negotiate with the striking emergency police 10111 operators. Now this, after the operators resumed their strike Thursday. That was yesterday after the wage talks deadlocked. Then we also see the African National Congress has called on members of the opposition parties in Parliament to follow the actions of the EFF members in Mogale City and vote with their conscience in the motion of no confidence debate in President Jacob Zuma. And finally, President Donald Trump has yet to announce a plan for Afghanistan and delays in unveiling his strategy that points to deep rifts within the White House on how to handle America's longest war and how to deal with it. You can find more of these stories on our Facebook page at SABC News. Let's now take a look at what's happening on the front pages from newspapers from around the globe, and we start off in New York. The Big Apple. The New York Times reports that in his 6 months as Homeland Security Secretary, John F. Kelly described the White House as one of the most dysfunctional organizations he's ever seen. Moving to China, the South China Morning Post says in what may turn out to be a major policy shift, Hong Kong's leader has publicly backed an assertion by the city's former central banker that the miserly fiscal philosophy of the past decade should be abandoned, even if increased spending leads to budget deficits. And finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that the Israel police is investigating the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, on suspicion of bribery, fraud and breach of trust. Now, that's according to a court document that was revealed accidentally. Those are your newspapers from around the globe. Let's now take a quick break. When we come back, we continue with our discussion and the focus on women abuse.
What guides us? Is it something you can see?
We need deliverance from sin, because God never
Hear?
carry on working to spread the message
Feel?
to the whole world.
Or touch? What leads us onto greater experiences? Is it the words of our sacred texts? The advice of our elders? Or is it the actions of our people? The strength of our beliefs? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Gauteng Premier David Makura has launched the Gauteng Provincial Government's Invest in a Girl, Child and Empower a Young Woman campaign to respond to challenges facing girl children as well as young women in the province. Now, the campaign is in particular necessitated by the sudden spate of killings against women and children in South Africa, a phenomenon known as femicide. Now, for more on this, we joined in studio by the Gauteng Social Development MEC, Nandi Mayatula Khoza. A very good morning to you, MEC, and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis. Thank you for inviting us.
Talk to us about the campaign, Invest in a Girl, Child and Empower a Young Women in the province. What is it all about?
Yes, thank you very much, Elvis. The Premier and his cabinet launched this campaign on investing in a girl child and empowering a young woman, as you correctly said, because of the spate of violence that we experienced during the early months of this year. And we are told that so far about 70, even more than 70 women have actually been violated, raped and killed by their own boyfriends, people that are known to themselves. So we couldn't keep quiet. The Premier said we can't keep quiet. Yes, there's work that we are doing as Gauteng government, working with our communities, but we need to upscale and we need to go to the communities and work with them. So the first thing that we identified was that could it be because of patriarchy? Could it be because of unequal power relations between men and women, between boys and girls? And secondly, we asked ourselves, how can we break the silence?
Yes.
It's very important to break the silence on violence on women, all forms of violence on women and children, especially femicide, because it's boyfriends, it's husbands, people known to themselves who are killing their own loved ones. And we thought, what about families? Is it because probably families are not as strong as they should be? Are they talking about these issues? What can we do? Can we intervene? Can we support? Can we strengthen the families? But is it because also our people are not even aware of the programs that we as government are actually running to help them to prevent violence? So these are some of the objectives that we set for ourselves.
Talking about the programs that is being rolled out, and some people are not even aware of them, what are you doing to make every single person here in Gauteng that's resident here aware of this particular program?
Yes, we will be going to all the corners of Gauteng. That's what the campaign is all about. It's not just a one-day campaign. It's a 5-year campaign. So I'd like to involve each and every person through various forms of media. Would like to involve the partners. We are working with partners, those organizations of men who say not in our name.
Yes.
We are working with them because there are good men in South Africa, but there are those who are bad. We as government also are going to upscale the programs that we are doing. Issues of safety, for example. We're going to go out there, we're going to go to the schools, we're going to go everywhere where the young women are. Of course, working with the partners to create awareness, on the scourge of violence on women.
Now, you heard earlier from our early interview from the station commander in Springs, and they were talking about the stats in the East Rand, which is fairly high, and Tembisa being the worst affected there. Are you aware of this, and what is the department doing specifically in that area to make sure that the people get the message?
Yes. We are aware. In fact, when the Premier and ourselves were launching this campaign in Zola, in Soweto, at Aurora Girls High School, at the same time, Eguruleni was actually, unveiling the report, the findings, because I was informed by the member of the mayoral committee, so we are aware that they had actually run a research, and they found out that indeed, the scourge of violence on women and children is actually escalating. And that's why we, as we go out to other areas of Gauteng, all the corners, we will zoom into Gauteng, we will zoom into Tembisa, we will continue to dialogue, because without talking, we can never know what the reasons are. Yes. We can never know, how to solve the problem. So we'll be dialoguing, we'll be creating awareness, we'll be educating our girls, we'll be going to assemblies. We have started doing that. But we'll also be addressing both girls and boys, because it takes two to tango.
Oh, yes.
What kind of boys are we raising in society? It's very, very important.
The type of programs that will be involved in the Invest a Girl, Child and Empower Young Woman, what sort of programs are we talking about, the campaigns that you'll be rolling out to make people aware that?
Yes. All the departments of government are playing a role. If you look at us as social development, to invest in a girl child. There are girl children who come from poor families who say, I can't even afford, my parents can't even afford sanitary towels. You can imagine those 4 days of the month they stay away from school. So we are investing in girl child, in providing those. The Premier said nothing less than 1 million girls should be reached out by 2019. So
by that you mean you'll be working, for instance, with the Nelson Mandela Foundation, which already had, I think it's 12 million pads that they've collected.
Yes, they are collecting, I think they set themselves a target of 2 million. So we are adding 1 million as government.
Oh, yes.
And we really appreciate Nelson Mandela Foundation and all other partners who are already contributing to this program, because it really empowers a girl child, but also the young women. As Gauteng government, we introduce to them all the the programs that we are carrying out. But the issue of employment has come up as priority number 1. So we are employing more women. If you look at the employment equity, we're close to 50% in Gauteng government, and we are introducing them to economic opportunities as well. And we have seen a lot of women participating in quite a number of businesses. Employment, the procurement, the preferential procurement, for example, where when we procure goods, we are procuring from women. We set ourselves a target of 30%, and we seem to be achieving it. But we say we can even, exceed 30%. So these are some of the programs we are carrying out.
How can people get involved with a program like this if they want to?
We would like people to get involved right from the families. Let them talk. Let them break the silence. When young women and girls are raped, let them not even withdraw their cases because that's a big problem. Then the communities, let people be involved in all the structures of the community so that we also as government can't just work alone. We have to reach out to the community structures that are there. We have organizations such as Power. We have men's organizations. I've spoken about that. We have young women's organizations. Let our people be involved. Let our girls and boys also to be involved in the youth clubs. Because engaging in sex as a child is not productive, it's counterproductive. But can the blessers stay away from our girl children as well? The blessers and the old and the older men. Can they stay away from our children so that our children can focus on education?
And not be blessed.
And not be blessed. They can only be blessed by God,
yes.
And they can also proceed to tertiary education because education is very, very critical.
Now, in May, the Premier said that the provincial government would ensure that all the regions in Gauteng have sexual offences courts as well as the municipal courts to deal with bylaws. What is the latest on that?
Indeed, there has been that decision. It's just that I don't have the numbers. But there is implementation of that decision of the Premier for sexual courts because some of the girls or the young women or women are scared to go and report. So with the sexual offences courts, it's better because they will feel free. They will be able to, to respond. And but what is also good is that we have what we call the Ikaya Letemba that prepares our young women before they go to these sexual offences courts. So that, they should be well prepared and be ready and be confident to say what happened to me, So yes, there will be a rollout of the sexual offences courts. I will check the numbers and will report back to you when we come back.
Wonderful, MEC. Do you think that making femicide perhaps a subcategory of murder in the police's crime statistics, that this will perhaps end the scourge of violence against women?
We think so. We think so, yes. We think it can end the scourge of violence on women and children because Karabo Mukwena was killed by her boyfriend. The lady from Naledi also, who was a lesbian, was killed by people that she knows. So if femicide is really prioritized, we think that indeed there can be a difference in ending the scourge of violence on women and children in our country.
MEC, I thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That was the Gauteng Social Development MEC, Nandi Mayatula Khoza, in studio with us. And that is why we're asking you that question. It's a very important question. How do we deal with the issue of women femicide and abuse in our country? As well as on the poll, I want you to participate on that and let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. But right now, it's getting hot in the studio. Let's find out what's happening with the weather.
Thanks very much and warm welcome. Let's take a look at your weather details. We are expecting partly cloudy skies over the northern parts and most parts of South Africa, going to the southern hemisphere for today. But over the far southern parts in South Africa, we are expecting isolated showers to scattered, and we're seeing heavy rain along the coastal regions of Western Cape going to Eastern Cape, associated with heavy rains that may lead to localized flooding. So please do take note of that. Going to the northern parts, we are expecting 30% chance of showers along the coast of Tanzania, moving to the interior of DRC, up to 80% chance of showers over the central interior of DRC. And tomorrow, we're only expecting 30% chance of showers going to the interior of Tanzania, moving to the southern parts, just partly cloudy skies, mostly over the eastern parts. Over South Africa, again, we're still expecting up to 80% chance of showers and 30% chance of showers over most parts of Western Cape, going to Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, Lesotho as well. But for Gauteng, going to Limpopo, we're only expecting partly cloudy skies for tomorrow. Along the coast of Madagascar, Madagascar, 30% chance of showers can be expected for tomorrow. Pretoria at 23 and 21, in Polokwane 22, for Mbombela, Bloemfontein at a maximum of 23. We are expecting up to 80% chance of showers along these regions for today, so please do take note of that. That comes with a warning of heavy rains that may lead to localized flooding. 27 is your maximum in Uppington, Springbok sitting at 16, and Cape Town at 16 with partly cloudy to mostly cloudy skies. Over our neighbors, we are expecting partly cloudy skies in Gaborone at 24, 25. For Francistown, Bulawayo sitting at 22. If you are in Beira, a maximum of 25 is forecast. And Maputo, over the southern parts, we are expecting a maximum of 27. If you are in Windhoek, a maximum of 23 and 22 is expected in Walvis Bay. Over Madagascar, we're still expecting 30% chance of showers, mostly along the coastal regions. Moving to the interior, just partly cloudy skies. 28 is your maximum in Moroni with 30% chance of showers. Over the interior of DRC today, over the central interior, up to 80% chance of showers, then 60, then isolated as you go towards the southern parts. Kinshasa at 30 degrees, 29 for Bangui, Juba at a maximum of 33, Mombasa at a maximum of 27, going to the southern parts, Lilongwe at a maximum of 28. Moving to the northern parts, still isolated showers can be expected over most parts. But moving to the interior of Nigeria, up to 80% chance of showers, and over Algeria, very isolated towards the interior. That is all. Ndawyando.
Thank you, Ozzy, with your weather forecast. It's getting hot, but it's getting hotter in Parliament. The cash-strapped national airline, SAA, is finally presenting its first quarter reports and progress on its turnaround strategy, which include the CEO, CFO, and other significant vacancies that need to be filled. The Finance Minister, Malusi Gigaba, is attending the presentation and to brief the legislatures on the latest bailout by the Treasury. Let's go live to Parliament.
The interventions that we intend implementing, we will make progress. For example, the Angolans have already started paying us $4.5 million of the $60 million that they owe us, and we have an agreement with them that they are going to pay on a monthly basis over the next few months. So we are positive that we are going to get that money. It will assist us to strengthen the cash balance in the airline. But that's not the only intervention. There are others, including revenue collection, revenue management in general, and how we manage some of the stock and equipment that we have in the airline. So without being tempted to drill down into the report, I will then hand over to the chair. The board is here. We have the Director General on my right, who will also assist to the extent that we can. We have DDG Anthony Julis over there. We've got Ravesh, who is our SAA aviation specialist. But the board is led by the chairperson. The deputy chair is the deputy chair is sitting right next to her. We have other members of the board. The acting CEO is also present. The brand new CFO is here also. I guess everybody else, including Sam, Chair. Thanks.
Members, can I suggest that instead of taking questions now, that we look at what the board's offering concretely in terms of its shareholder compact, its turnaround strategy, its 5-year corporate plan, because the ministers provided the overview framework within which the board is going to exchange further. It'll be more like precise. Is that okay? Yeah, because also I think flights and so on a Friday are quite challenging. So people will have to finish by 13:00 if possible. Over then to you, Chairperson, and welcome, and to your board and to the management.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Minister and the leadership from the department and the honourable members of this committee, leadership from the South African Airways and the board next to me. Chairperson, the Minister has given a very clear overview And indeed, we concur with everything that the Minister is saying. But also, I think this committee might be keen to know that while I have the deputy chairperson next to me, I have the chairperson of the turnaround strategy behind us, Swazi Shabalala, and she's leading as the chair of the board committee, because we needed to support the executives in terms of the review of the turnaround as well as the monitoring of the implementation, because that's more important. That the LTTS is being implemented. Without any further waste of time, Honorable Chair, may I then hand over to the CEO, acting CEO, to give us the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Honorable Minister and members. What I'm going to try and do today, Chairperson, I will not be taking you through all the slides. There are 5 key messages that I would like to leave this committee with at the end of my presentation. Indeed, we as SAA are facing liquidity constraints. However, the board has reacted to this. Board and management have been working together over the past 8 months. The idea was to try and come up with something that will take us to financial stability. The Minister has highlighted a number of issues economically that are affecting us, and I do agree with the Minister that it is not only affecting SAA, it's affecting other airlines as well. However, what is important for us is how do we respond to these market conditions, to the challenges within the company, and also in order to ensure that we bring the airline to stability. I think we will go straight to the strategic focus areas, because that is really the key message that I would like to leave this committee with. In us developing our strategy, it's based on the SDP model, which is you stabilize, you defend, and you build. I think in the situations that we find ourselves in today as the airline, it is very important for us to be focusing mainly on stabilizing the airline, in ensuring that we address key liquidity issues, we address key balance sheet issues, and then we defend our catchment area. I think in this we want to make sure that we do not allow for what the market is doing to take the airline down. We need to respond in terms of how we defend, and then we can then build from that point. So when we look at areas of stabilizing the airline, obviously what we have done, we've come up with the 5-year turnaround strategy. We have also looked at issues that are affecting our cash burn, and we have responded to that, and that will be highlighted a bit later. Management has been appointed, and the Minister has announced on the CEO, the CRO, and the process of the appointment of the CCO, the Chief Commercial Officer, is in line. But I think we need to also mention that in terms of governance, we are working quite hard as management and the board to ensure that our governance structures do work, addressing areas of supply chain management and addressing the shortcomings. And we are working together with the AG currently. They're highlighting some of the issues, and those issues are currently being addressed by management in ensuring that we are then able to stabilize the organization. But then on the defense side, we are talking mostly there about rationalizing and strengthening our route network. I think it's important, and I will mention later, what we are doing to ensure that we defend we rationalize our route network. But key to this also is to address the areas of revenue management. There is a number of activities that we have been embarking on in addressing revenue management, addressing areas of revenue leakage, also addressing areas of pricing, because in the past you did not have, or right now we do not have the skills in the area of pricing, but we've been strengthening that area and ensuring that we're getting people who would help us with that. Defending our market share, deepening our capabilities is another area that we are looking at. I think when you look at this model, it is helping in terms of guiding us on what key areas we need to focus on. So I will maybe, in looking at the next slide, we look at the key strategic outcomes. We discussed this at the last committee sitting where we address issues of liquidity, balance sheet, revenue enhancement, and cost management. Now, to open up areas of liquidity, if I go to the next slide, we have initiated a number of revenues, of initiatives which include in them recapitalization, cash management, and we have been looking at our cash conservation office, which so far has contributed. In the slide, in the coming slide, it will tell you what we've been able to save in that area. We have prevented 35 million rands of cash burn, and we are continuing with us reviewing and looking at that. The cash capital, the cash injection we have spoken about, but there are other existing debt maturities that we are talking about. Sorry, Chair. Just want to, I can't see clearly there. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't see, Chairperson. So we have debt that is maturing in 30th of September. We are currently in negotiations with the lenders, and the CFO will say more about that when she gives her presentation. I am not going to talk more about revenue enhancement, safe to say that our target in this area over the next couple of months is to save the 13.65 over the time of the plan. And then on our cost optimization, we are looking at 10.14 over the 5-year plan. There are many steps that we are looking at there. However, what I would like to address, Chairperson, are the key things that we are doing right now to address the cash burn. And those things are 5. We have decided on 5 key issues as executives that we are going to be embarking on to address the cash burn. One is route rationalization, which will save 900 million per annum, and that is starting right now. There are a number of routes that we will be looking at cancelling and pulling out of, and we are expecting a saving of 900 million. In terms of cost optimization, we are embarking on saving about 520 million at the end of 2017-18 by looking at a number of issues that are geared towards saving cost optimization. This looks at fuel management. It looks at not filling positions where we don't have, and we have started doing that. Another one in terms of the 5-year plan that we are involved in is it's fleet retiring of the 5 wide-body aircraft And that has started. We are starting with 2. I think it's August, November. And then we will be, it's August, September, and then we will be looking at the 3 more later on. We are also doing a down gauging of aircraft flying from Cape Town to Joburg. This will help us prevent fuel, spending money on maintenance and fuel. And that has also started in earnest. And we are looking at a saving of more than 10 million on that issue. The implementation of appointment of management in the executive structures, as we know, has started. Yesterday, there was the announcement of the CEO. The CRO has also been appointed, awaiting him signing on, and he will help us with the implementation of the turnaround strategy. The increases on management will not be affected going forward, especially this next financial year, and that would give us a saving going forward. And the EXCO has decided on Friday to take a 5% salary cut, and that would be effective from September of this year. I think the EXCO taking a salary cut is really an issue of, symbolically, we are aware that the airline is facing problems, and we are saying that as EXCO, we are responding to that. So, in conclusion, Chairperson, we are aware of the problems. We are reacting to the problems that we have highlighted, and the strategy and its delivery is key to us as executives, and we will be in support of the new CEO when he comes to ensure that we deliver on the plan as it is, Chairperson. So I didn't cover for all the slides because we've circulated them, but we will take questions on them. I just covered the key 5 items that EXCO will be embarking on going forward. I'll hand over to the CFO to address the first quarter results.
The order of the agenda. Because when you give us too much, then we don't engage.
Sorry.
That's why we've broken up the agenda. Okay, so the first item is what we're now focusing on your agenda. Questions, comments from members, please. We had indicated you won't be here this week. We pleased you back. Okay, with a full set of new teeth. Those who want to examine it can do so after 1 o'clock. Next is Mr. Lees, and then is Derek and Tikaledi. And Pinky. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for welcoming back, and I'm thankful to the doctor. I know you will not believe me. I brought the medical certificate in case you give me trouble.
No, we can see the new makeup.
Yeah, Chair, let me start with the good news. First, let me welcome what the Minister has said, and also to appreciate the fact that he came to the committee himself. And one of the excitements is the fact that the suggestion we made as the committee for them to speak to the Angolans to give back the money is bearing fruit. It's one of the low-hanging fruits that we need to celebrate today. It's one step taking us forward. But secondly, also to appreciate the fact that the board is here, as we requested in the last meeting, to come and account to the committee. Unfortunately, I'm going to register my disappointment. It's unfortunate, Minister, and I'm hoping that because you are here, you will deal with these issues yourself and pay attention. In the last meeting, let me brief you. In the last meeting, I celebrated the 5 points that were presented to us as the turnaround strategy. And I still remember them by heart. I was the one singing them in the meeting. Liquidity, blah, blah, blah. And I said, based on that, we're going somewhere. But listening to the acting CEO, really, listening to you, sir, making a presentation today, that's where my disappointment comes from. Because I thought that based on those 5 pillars that we discussed in the last quarter, you were going to say in terms of achievements in the quarter, this is what we were able to achieve. And you see, don't underestimate the intelligence of members by giving us wrong information. You see, you say here today, you saved a cash burn of 35 million. You see, you can't say that. You can't. Because as we stand, you had to get cash injections not only to deal with the loans that were maturing, but you realize loss. And you should be frank and open and speak to us in relation to that. Don't present something that is not there. And I'll take you through so that I remind you of the things that we dealt with in the last meeting. And I'll start right at the end, Chair. You see, in relation to domestic revenue, the decline in the last quarter, you were actually realizing 86%. Okay? So at least you should be giving us a figure. I'm not saying you should realize A+, but you should be able to say to us today it has reduced from 86% to at least 65%. As an example. So that we can see that there's a slight improvement. And we said to you, deal with issues of your stock. And let me make an example. Last weekend, I'm going to use this anecdote, Chair, because it's very important. My kids were flying to Bloemfontein. The flight is delayed because of technical reasons. For the past 3 years, the flights between Bloemfontein on a daily basis, they are delayed because of technical challenges. 3 full years. I don't even fly to Bloemfontein anymore, I drive. Because I'm tired of being delayed all the time. You have not dealt with that. So we need you to tell us, leave alone the 2 that you're going to expand.
Is that? It's an SA flight.
It's SA Express.
It's Express.
Managed by them, Chair. Yeah. So, no. I'm very sure of that one because I know what was presented here the last time to us. I take details very serious. Come on, David, you get a chance. You see what you're doing. You see what David is doing, Chair, and you're not protecting me from David. You see.
Usually, I have to protect others from you, so it's not a.
If you want me to take that route, I'm going to do it today, and I'm very good at doing it. Chair, in terms of route rationalization, I come from a thinking that we should be expanding, not actually going back. And I still need to be convinced. I still need to be convinced why do we give our routes to British Airways, reduce the space in our own country? I'm not convinced. And I gave an anecdote last year of a person who works for a different airline who says that we're not taking opportunities that South Africa should be taking. So I don't buy into that one that if we want to follow this route of wanting to reduce our flight because we want, I made the suggestion that jet fuel can be sourced cheaper if we can change our strategies. What's the problem? It's not about reducing the routes. It's about the prices that you are paying for your jet fuel. If you have to source somewhere else, so be it. Why are the other people doing it right? Why can't SAA get it right? Why people who are flying the same routes are profitable and we can't? I want us to really don't shy away on that one, on the issue of jet fuel. And we come to the bottom of it. In terms of the debt that is maturing in September, again, Chair, Minister, we're putting you on the spot again. I'm worried. I'm sorry about that. I'm worried that, again, Chair, we might find ourselves not being told whether when this debt matures in September we'll be able to service it or not. The minister must not be caught on a back foot like he had to bail out the 2.2 billion rands because he was not told in advance that we will not be able to pay this debt. That's what happened in the last. And we tried to ask questions. Are you able to pay this debt? Okay. And I don't want us to do what the GA wanted us to do, to discuss who are the investors that will be approaching in relation to where we source our funds from. We just want assurity that you'll be able to do it, because the presentation of facts as they are help us to understand whether there's improvements or not. So can you let the CFO, leave it CEO, let the CFO speak to this one, because she's the one who deals with the rents and cents. She'll be able to give us the figures as they stand, correctly as they are, because as you presented them, that's not the way they are. That's not how we captured them in the last discussions. Maybe it's because you were not here and she presented them, so we took note of the things that she said. And the intention is not to put you on the spot, but the intention is to help you out and for us to have a fair understanding that indeed there's improvements. Let's be honest about the challenges that are there and look at what we will be able to attain. And just give us one line of 2 things that we got right between now and then. And Minister, this aggressive turnaround, unfortunately, is going to put you in a place where you need to monitor them on a daily basis. You know, the niceties of presentations is not in the action that is taken. So, in a way, you've got an extra homework to let the institution being run in a corporate manner. For you to be able, and I'm sorry, if it comes to a point where you need to make changes of faces of people to be able to get that aggressiveness, it will end up being the only option you have. Because there comes a point where you say, is this management able to pull what we need to do? Yes or no? And if not, then it needs to be changed. It's painful because we're dealing with warm bodies, but we want this institution to perform better. And that's our intention as the African National Congress. We want to give it the support. We don't want to just ask difficult questions. We made suggestions on how we believe we can attain this, and it's about corporate governance. It's about the smartness of the institution in terms of how it implements. Because for me, when my kids had to be redirected to Johannesburg, it was a loss on your behalf. Bad management in relation to that. And it's bad to make such an example because it's lack of professionalism to deal with things on the spot at the time, I think.
The range and number of questions that Tandi's asked, that she's covered the entire committee, right? So all of you now will have no time to ask any questions. Where's Advocate Jenkins? Can the chairperson rule that the number of questions are so comprehensive and so challenging that it'll take the SAA and the department 2 hours to reply, and then we'll all be rushing for our flights? Where's Advocate Jenkins? All right, think about that. In the meanwhile, who's next?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased that I'm having the opportunity to build on the short message from Tandi behind me. Mr. Chairman, on a serious note, on the 27th of June, the day that SAA appeared before SCOF and where Ms. Mnyeni was the only SAA board member present, Ms. Mnyeni called me on my cell phone after the meeting to accuse me of spying on her because I was aware of her stay at the very expensive Beverly Hills Hotel in Mhlanga Rocks, as well as her choosing to fly by BA from Durban to Cape Town on the morning of the 27th. Ms. Mnyeni threatened me by informing me that her husband was considering to sue me, apparently for spying on her. Mr. Chairman, may I request that I get an apology from Ms. Mnyeni? Mr. Chairman, it was a blow to our confidence in the integrity of National Treasury when it was announced on the 1st of July that the Minister of Finance had invoked Section 16 of the PFMA to make an emergency payment of 2.207 billion to SAA to pay Standard Chartered. This was a blow because only 3 days before the payment was made, and when we questioned about the possible repayment of Standard Chartered bank loan, National Treasury seems to have failed to answer honestly and to inform the SCOF that there was no rollover agreement with Standard Chartered. SAA would have to be given cash to bail them out, and the Minister of Finance was considering, even if not yet decided, to invoke Section 16 of the PFMA. This would seem to be an unacceptable case of misrepresentation to Parliament, and in essence, treating MPs with a degree of disdain. We trust that this will not be the modus operandi of National Treasury as we move forward to ensure that the mismanagement of SAA and many other SOEs such as Eskom is rooted out before these organizations collapse or the taxpayer is forced to continue to bail them out. Mr. Chairman, the Minister this morning tells us that he will make some announcements in the MBPPS. Why not now? What are the announcements? Why not keep Parliament informed about what the proposals are? Mr. Chairman, the SAA corporate plan calls for a 13 billion rand recapitalization to meet working capital requirements, and which is a euphemism to say pay for ongoing losses. The cash flow indicates that right now SAA are short of 568 million rand. And I give credit to both the Minister and the acting CEO for acknowledging the liquidity crisis that exists. So right now, the July payments cannot be made. They're short of 568 million rand. There's no cash in the bank, and it appears no one is willing...
Mr. Lees, shouldn't those questions go under financials, rather? We're dealing with overall strategy, turnaround, corporate plan, and so on. But you can raise those questions. They're very legitimate. It's just that, you see, the problem we have, you yourself have been complaining, that we have an overall input from the entity or department, then we ask 5,000 questions, then they reply to 20, and then we get the remainder. So I really think, in fact, I'm cheering. I'm not going to allow it. Let's focus on the issue. You can ask those questions later down. Let's focus on strategy, compact, corporate plan. But those questions can come up later.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move on then to the investigation reports. At the SCOF meeting on the 27th of June, there was once again a commitment from the Deputy Minister and National Treasury to ensure that the SCOF received copies of these reports.
What are you talking about now, sorry?
The investigation reports that I had requested from November last year, Mr. Chairman, and that you supported me at the last meeting.
Yeah, we agree with that. Where does that fall into the corporate plan, the turnaround strategy?
It's part of the corporate.
Part of the report. Okay, fine.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your indulgence on this one then. These reports were not forthcoming until I made a public demand, and I'm grateful to the Deputy Minister that he graciously met the deadline that I had unilaterally imposed. And I'm sorry he's not here for me to thank him for that. Sadly, whilst the deadline was met, only one of the 16 reports was provided. This report runs to some 2,000 or more pages and took over a week for the hard-working committee staff to make copies of and to distribute to members. The question is, why have copies of these reports, the balance of the reports, not been submitted to the committee? Are they all so sensitive that not even a portion of them can be delivered to us? I'm afraid I don't buy that, if that is the answer. Mr. Chairman, in terms of the report we did get, given that the report by EY was dated December 2015 and also reveals considerable mismanagement, including fuel supply contracts not optimally negotiated, as is suggested by Thandi behind me, the suppliers market was not always tested to obtain the best deal, Contracts were not effectively monitored, and consequently there were instances where invoice charges were higher than the contract prices. The actual total spend on contracts exceeded the total contract price. Contracts were awarded on a quotation basis where there should have been a tender process. Tender processes, as I think has been acknowledged by the Minister and the CEO, were very slow, up to 2 years, and resulted in higher costs of procurement, done on a month-to-month basis. Savings actually negotiated with suppliers were not realized because contracts were not implemented. The combined buying power of SAA and its subsidiaries, primarily Mango, was not leveraged to obtain the better rates and prices. And then, for me, as a bookkeeper, documentation retention was a concern, which to me is a no-no, absolute no-no. And not all of SAA contracts were investigated by EY, but they investigated 38 contracts and raised red flags on 12, 32% of those contracts, where they state, and I quote, "Matters of concern identified relating to the contract requiring your immediate and/or urgent attention. By not addressing these concerns, SAA and its subsidiaries may be exposed to financial loss or legal liability." Mr. Chairman, the question then is, this report is dated December 2015. Who has been held accountable? What action has been taken to fix the issues raised there? How many cases of fraud and corruption have been laid, if there are any? And who are the persons charged, and what progress has been made? Mr. Chairman, given the clear mismanagement of SAA during the tenure of Ms. Mnyeni as board chair, and given the Minister's statements that Ms. Mnyeni's term as board chair comes to an end in August, can the Minister please inform us who will take over from Ms. Mnyeni as board chair at the end of August? Mr. Chairman, we've issued a statement, and we genuinely mean it. We welcome the appointment of Mr. Vuyani Jahana as the CEO of SAA.
It is the DA that is doing this thing, eh?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased that people are taking me seriously and trying to shut me down. Mr. Jahana has an impressive track record in business and should be well placed in order to turn SAA into a profitable operation. And we certainly wish him well, and we will give him all the support we can. However, Mr. Chairman, given the crisis at SAA, what are the details of the performance requirements that Mr. Vuyani has been given? And equally, what are the requirements that Mr. Vuyani has given to SAA and the Minister that he needs in order to be a success in this job? Mr. Chairman, we note with gratitude the voluntary 5% salary cut of EXCO. It's a token, but it is an indication of the understanding of the crisis at SAA, and that must be congratulated. However, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Jahana comes from Vodacom. He's in a very senior position there on a very huge salary. Can the Minister reassure us about what salary package, remuneration package, has been offered to Mr. Jahana to entice him to come and fix SAA? And I say again, we have great confidence that if he's given all the support and the freedom, that he can do the job. He seems to us to be the right person for the job. Mr. Chairman.
He gets 20 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I won't react to Thandi. I enjoy being heckled. Yes, absolutely. Mr. Chairman, I I really enjoy the minister, and I warned him earlier that I hope he had his flak jacket on because the bullets would be flying from this side. So I hope he hasn't got any wounds just yet. But Mr. Minister, you made no mention at all of private equity, either in full or in part, as a possibility. And so I have to jump to the conclusion that it's now off the agenda. And, Ms. Minister, you quite rightly say it should not have taken so long. In fact, it actually hasn't started really yet for remedial action to be done. If you're acknowledging that, who's being held accountable? Who's losing their job? It cannot be that the taxpayer has had to bail out SAA to the tune of billions, and we now say, well, it's taken too long, it should have started a long time ago, but there are no consequences for anyone. It cannot be like that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Derek, that's next, I think. I can't recall. Yeah.
Thanks, Chairperson. I won't be 20 minutes, I promise you. Let me also, well, if you want me to be, I could, I suppose. But let me firstly just echo what other people have said and welcoming the appointment of the CEO. This will be a big challenge. I think some questions have been asked in relation to it. But I think we can all be confident that this is a good appointment and be confident that this CEO will be able to implement a turnaround strategy and is highly competent to do so. But it will depend on the substance of the strategy itself. As the Minister said, the CEO can't do it on his own. He will need solid backing from the board, good strategic direction, a good plan to implement, and a good team to help him implement the plan. But we welcome this appointment. A question here is, I mean, it's clear that the SAA as it stands is fraught with problems. It's not a going concern. It's been and is a burden on the fiscus, and it cannot continue to be so. So the turnaround strategy has to, amongst other things, ensure that the SAA will not continue to be a burden on the fiscus. 2 billion rand, Chairperson, would build 20,000 houses for the homeless. So, we use these figures lightly, but actually they're at the expense of something else. So it cannot continue to be. So if this is going to be turned around, are we confident that this turnaround strategy will help bring our national carrier to becoming a going concern, and if so, by when? The 3 billion recapitalization money, Chairperson, although it might come up in the next session, or the next discussion, the big question really is, where exactly will this come from? And it would be useful if we know that there's a clear and concrete plan, given that this amount has been identified as a necessary amount for the recapitalization. Where will it come from? On the board itself, clearly, we have had historical problems with the board, and the question to the Minister is this board, as it stands today, and to the board members themselves, is it operating effectively as a team? We've read reports that the chairperson has been absent from a number of board meetings, and the question is the chairperson attending all board meetings? The board, it's clear, we know, the board doesn't run the company. It is there to give strategic direction, it is there to do oversight, but it should be the distinction between what a board does and what management does has to be very clear. As I said, it does not run the company, yet in the past, there has been a sort of a confusion of roles, and the chairperson has tended to overstep the roles and responsibilities of a chairperson of a board and been inclined to almost act as a CEO, which is not what a chairperson of a board should be doing. So although the chairperson will not be there for much longer, we need an assurance that this is no longer the case, that the board is doing what it needs to do, strategic direction, good oversight, but not trying to interfere in the operations of the company. We need that assurance. On the arising from the report, Chairperson, obviously the cuts in salary of 5% of the senior executives would be symbolically very important and should be very welcomed. However, in the presentation itself, it talks about no salary increases for management. Yet in your verbal presentation, you said a 5% cut. If we can just get clarity on that. And finally, Chairperson, the last question from the previous speaker. With all of these things that have been happening to SAA, that have cost our country heavily, cost our economy heavily, who is being held accountable? If we could get a clear answer on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me also welcome the team and appreciate the presence of the Minister. And I think, Minister, it's, I don't know if it was coincidental that you requested the meeting to be postponed to today so that you can give us the news that the CEO has just been appointed yesterday and the meeting happened today. It's good news to us, and I think it's a good timing. It just happened to be a good timing for the meeting to happen today. We welcome the appointment. It's long overdue, and as a committee we've been complaining about this. And the presence of the board members. Last time we were in this meeting, we were disappointed that only the chair was here and the team was not here. And today that the team is here with the chairperson, we welcome you and we appreciate that you responded. You did not leave everything to the chairperson. Hence, our concern was that all the time she's being accused. And some of you as team members in the corners outside there, you're complaining and sending wrong messages. And when you're supposed to come here in front of the committee, you are not available. We are happy you're here today. Whatever we're saying, whatever we're talking about, you'll be part of the discussion. Still on the same mode, Chairperson, of thanking the team. I also want to thank the team for availing documents. You know, this tendency and this behavior that one has been complaining about since 2014, that you get documents inside the meeting. You cannot engage well with those documents. And I'm happy that this time around you were able to give us information and we have been able to go through the documents in time. Chair, the same confusion that I think Honorable Liz is on, I was for a little bit. You look at the agenda, you look at 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 4, and 5, but you look at the presentation, the content. Hence, there will be some mistakes where we might overlap. Pardon us for that, because there's that confusion. Having said that, Chair, I want to speak to the pillars. I know Comrade Thandi have said a mouthful about that. On your presentation, it's on slide 5. The overarching message there is financial sustainability. And all other members who spoke before me, Honorable Liz and others, and I think the country at large, we've been having a concern about the bailing out of this institution over time. I don't know if I should ask this question, that do you believe that we will ever have or experience sustainability financially in this institution, ever. You know, correctly, Honorable Tobias asked the question, what are you saying in terms of these pillars, in terms of this strategy? How far are you? Because our responsibility, we have agreed and welcomed, we're happy about the strategy. Ours is do an oversight and monitor if there is an implementation according to this. The CEO, we are all happy. And we are convinced that with the credentials that the minister has said and that we hear from the media, he will bring some stability or good things, the outcomes to the institution. But I want to request, Chairperson, through you, to the institution and Treasury, that I think there should be an operational plan which will be informed by these pillars, that will speak to these pillars in terms of the minister spoke of the long-hanging fruits. Is it the minister or the ex-CEO? Someone spoke of that. In terms of priority, the short-term, middle-term, and long-term plans. And I think if we have that operational plan to the CEO, it will be easier for us as the committee to monitor. What I liked about the presentation, because it's difficult, Mr. Zwane, you said you are summarizing. You did not speak to the slides. I understand that, but I'm saying at least we received the documents in time. Where you speak about the consequential management, that is very key. And that will help, because sometimes people do things because they know there will be no consequences. And once that is happening, I think Chairperson will help a lot in terms of making sure that these things that we read about, this misconduct, these decisions that are being taken and people doing as they wish, will not happen. And I'm happy that you're saying you are working with the AG. Remember, this is one of the things that we have raised earlier in 2015. Now that it's happening, Chairperson, I'm happy. Chair, on the transformation, as you implement a transformation, Chairperson and Acting CEO, the team, I think we should not leave out, we spoke also on restructuring. There's a person dedicated for restructuring. We should not leave out the organized labor, because employees are going to be affected in any way. So in our implementation of the restructuring and also transforming, we need to make sure that we include employees through their unions as organized labor. Mr. Liz, I have a request on what you have said, the concern that you have raised about what happened between you and the chairperson, which happened outside the committee or the House. My request, Chairperson, is that I'm appealing that we should not discuss this matter. Maybe necessary steps need to be taken outside to deal with it. Because I've always had a problem whereby instead of playing the ball, we are playing a man. And we should not, cloud our meeting whereby we are going to, derail our focus and focus on other issues. I understand your concerns, but I was saying, because these things happened outside, let them be dealt with accordingly outside and not be part of the discussion in the meeting.
Chair, just on a point of order. Chair, can I just, while we're on this, express my strong disagreement with that position? I've said it before and I'll say it again. Dumi is not a chairperson. She's a corporate warlord.
Chairperson,
Threatening, phoning and threatening our member
Mr.
and a
Menya,
member of this committee.
You're doing what you are
out
known
of order,
for.
Chairperson.
There's no
Dumi
Mr. Mania, I'm not allowing you to speak.
Apologize
you are not allowed
to Mr.
Elfleet
and to this committee. We cannot have a situation where the chairperson of a board calls and threatens a member of parliament and a member of this committee. And I would ask,
I hope you had the power to switch off his mic, because it's just out of order.
Right. Now, can we calm down? Firstly, may I take this opportunity?
I was still on the floor.
No, I'm the chairperson. I'm telling you now. I'm not asking you to stop. Right. Firstly, I want to welcome the school, the learners who are here. Dikeledi, I'm chairing. Can you switch your mic off, Dikeledi, please? Right, I'm welcoming the learners who are here. This is your parliament. Welcome. What we are doing here is we're meeting with the Minister of Finance, Minister Malusi Kikaba, and his team from the department. South African Airways, which is state-owned, it's owned by yourselves, the government and the people, and ourselves as the Finance Committee. And we're asking them questions about their overall approach, how are they doing financially, and so on. That is it. Now, the Parliament is very robust, meaning people speak a lot and we have our little tiffs and so on, but this is the way Parliament functions. That's part of a democracy. Now, on this matter, it's a very simple thing. Dikeledi has every right. Firstly, Mr. Lees, you are right to raise it here. I wish you had raised it with me outside the meeting. I did not know about this matter, and I think it's indecorous, if I may use that word. Maybe it's too strong a word. I would say it wasn't appropriate in my view, as a subjective chairperson. It's not appropriate for you to have raised it without at least letting me know. If that indeed did happen, then if it did happen, it is completely out of order, and it's not the first time necessarily, let me remind members. And that is not something that Dikeledi or David or I am going to decide. That is the rules of Parliament, and Advocate Jenkins is going to decide. But since the matter has been raised here, Advocate Jenkins, it may be appropriate that Ms. Mieni, because it's now in the public domain, the media has been given a chance to reply. I'll ask for your guidance. It is not the subjective wish of Dikeledi, or the subjective wish of David Mania, or the subjective wishes of the chairperson. The rules will decide and the norms will decide. So I'll come back to you on that matter when all questions have been asked. You will get your chance to actually pose a question. There's no point of order. The order that I noticed was the following. All of you will get a chance to speak. Next is Pinky, then it's Floyd after Dikeledi, it's finished. Then it's Pinky, then it's Floyd, then it's David, and then it's Marsh Sitole Shope. Right.
Chairperson, it's not correct what David is doing. And
Dikeledi, focus on the issues now. I've chaired and ruled on the matter. Now, if you're not happy with it, can we move to the next speaker? I have to operate by the rules, Dikeledi. You're not above them.
No,
I've already expressed my... At the same time, I'm bound by the rules and norms, and Advocate Jenkins will guide us on that. Can you continue on other matters? Thank you.
No, Chairperson, I know you're the Chairperson and you have all the powers to rule, and I always respect that. But I must not be suppressed to raise my concern as a member of this committee. I raise questions, and people are given an opportunity to speak on matters. And whoever wants to challenge or disagree with me must wait his or her time to do that. I can't allow David to do what he's doing over and over again.
Agreed.
He can't intimidate me, and he must stop doing this.
We agree. I agree with you. I've ruled he's out of order, and he has to accept that. All right, carry on, Dikeledi. Okay, you're finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Chair. I think I want to agree with Comrade Dikeledi that private conversations must be private conversations. If members decide to engage outside the activities of Parliament, let them do that, and we can't be drawn into those things. So, as far as...
that already, can you go on to the next issue, please? I've ruled on that already.
Chair, I think let me welcome the presentation of the minister and what the SAA has just presented. But I think, Minister, I want you to understand where we come from as this committee. And to us, you know, the slow pace that some of these things have been going on disturbs us a bit. I mean, this board, it's about, it will be turning 1 year on the 2nd of September, if I'm not wrong. And I think even yourself, when you get appointed as a minister, you have 100 days kind of activities and targets that you work on. There are quite a number of things that are really, of course, you have said it in your framework, but I don't think some of these things really, unless if it's not work as usual, people put more effort on some of their things. I move from the premise of Comrade Thandi to say, we have heard some of these things and we want action, we want implementation. And we know board members, and we really appreciate the work that people agree to serve in our boards. And if people feel they are overburdened, they must be able to say it, and so that you are also allowed as a minister to add on where people are unable to deal with some of their things. I mean, even the fact that in the last meeting most of them could not pitch after we had postponed from our side, it was a cause for concern. I think, Minister, and I think this is one of the things that has been a thorn on my flesh, the route network issue as part of your turnaround strategy. And I always say this as an example, that if SAA flies to Heathrow, they fly there and their Boeing stands there until they come back. Do this, they fly from Joburg to Devon to all these routes, and they take our routes. And I'm giving that as an example, as a patriotic South African. You have to sit as the Minister of Finance with the Minister of Transport and start to say, let us review some of this. That's what radical transformation also speaks to. Because until we start to look at all those routes and say, and those routes are very sustainable routes that can even assist our national career to improve its work. These guys are eating up on all these things. Go and review all these licenses that are being given to all these other airlines. We can't be apologetic on some of those things and watch our airline going down the drain. It can't happen. There are quite a number of things, including, I mean, if you look at most of these national carriers, they even own the airports. Why is it different from us not to own our own airports as SAA? So these are some of the things that are difficult, but we now have to put them on the table and start to say, can't we do these things differently? So I think as you stabilize, as you defend and build, part of the things that you should look at is the route and how strategic some of those things are. I'm worried about the outstanding investigations and all other things because money has been incurred. Why are we not being given those reports so that we are able to? Some of them are not even having to deal with market-sensitive issues. I mean, it has been there in the public that our pilots are getting more incentives. It's unaffordable. How can we turn those things around? And there's still disparities even around those. It's not all pilots who receive some of those things. And why is it still this way? Why can't we look at all those things and start to act? And act now. Huh? It is public knowledge that somewhere you are paying for offices that the routes are not even there. Does it have to do with market sensitivity? I mean, if people bogusly create some of these things wrongly and so on, and we are slow in acting and saving costs and acting along those lines. I mean, we have to do some of those things and act accordingly. So I'm worried. I'm really worried, and in fact, this engagement continues to depress me because I don't see the sense of us moving swiftly. You know, I was part of the last meeting where we were assured that it will be just swift in terms of dealing with the challenges of the financial situation. And the next thing, it was a rush, one last-minute rush for you to deal with some of those things. So we want to really be honest and then be able to deal with some of these things accordingly. September is coming. I'm not sure. And the way I see things, we just hope in that mood of you being so relaxed, it means things will be moving in a proper way. But Mina, Minister, if truth be told, I agree with Thandi and them to say, if there are people who feel they can't serve, they have other engagements that they are dealing, let's thank them and make them to leave as board members and then get new people who can be able to deal with this thing, because we don't have the time and pleasure to deal with. It has never happened that crew members, that all these things, from time to time it's SAA this and so on and so on. And we want stability, the stability that you guys are talking to. Thank you.
Floyd.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. So in terms of the powers, privileges and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, it is not permissible for any South African citizen to intimidate a member of Parliament as a result of what they said in a committee of Parliament. So it's inappropriate of a chairperson of a board of a state-owned company to call any member of Parliament to want to make follow-up or raise intimidations or issues on issues that occurred in Parliament. So it will be inappropriate for Ms. Dumi to call any member of Parliament, whether they are members of the ANC or DA or the EFF, about issues that arose here in Parliament. I think that perhaps that what should be done is that the member concerned should make follow-up in terms of that piece of legislation, because that prohibited act can be prosecuted upon if you take that to relevant authorities. I think that is one of the things that has to be dealt with as a matter of agency, because delinquency should not be accepted, must not be permitted, particularly when it relates to members of Parliament. Members of Parliament must never ever be intimidated. We have got the freedom of expression that is guaranteed and protected by the Constitution, so that we're able to hold the executive accountable in an open and fearless space. So that is one. And the second issue is that in July 2015, when there were problems in ESCOM, the National Treasury, I think that time the minister was Minister Ntantlanen, came to request that we should allow government to dispose of its stake in Vodacom. Sold its stake from Vodacom, I think it was about 13.9%, to the PIC for about almost 30 billion rand in order to bail out Eskom. And that money we later on appropriated. We even passed special legislation to try to rescue Eskom from the crisis that it was confronting then. But despite throwing the money into Eskom, we have not been able to rescue it from the crisis that it had entered into. The corruption continued in Eskom, the maladministration. It is reflected in the current financials where there is more than 3 billion rands in irregular expenditure in Eskom. So we just threw money because there was a crisis there in terms of what had happened. And I saw elsewhere that there are speculations that the minister is considering disposal of some of the strategic assets which the state owns in order to bail out SAA. Well, we know that there's not been an official communication about that, but I would think that as a committee we should advise that National Treasury should not dispose of any state assets in order to bail out SAA. They are far much more sophisticated and complex problems that I will explain what has to be done to resolve them at SAA. It's not even a long solution. And more so Telkom. So Telkom must not be sold, Minister. The state owns about 40% of Telkom. And despite its non-majority stake in Telkom, state received in the current financials about 2 billion rands in dividends from Telkom and above 1.1 billion rands in taxes from Telkom. And that excludes the personal income taxes of the 19,000 employees of Telkom. So you have a state-owned, like partially, company called Telkom that is adding value into the fiscal. So you can't dispose it in order to put a bandage on the wounds that are on SAA. It will not be wise to take such a decision. It will not benefit our country now and in the long run. So I think that is one thing that we should advise, should not be engaged on in the process of rescuing SAA. The second last issue I want to deal with is on the 2nd of September last year, the presidency issued a statement, it's still there, that indicated, which announced the appointment of the new boards, the new board of SAA, which announced the inclusions of the board members, Ramano, Chiseve, Maluleke, and all of them. But that statement also said that Ms. Dumi is going to be reappointed for a period of 1 year. That was in September 2016. So I wanted to check as to, are we going to see Ms. Dumi leave the SAA on the 2nd of September? Is a term coming to an end? Because that is what was publicly communicated. And I hope that that should be the case. So Ms. Dumi must finish a term and then hand over to whoever government will appoint to then take the institution forward. And I think that lies at the center of stabilization of the South African Airways, that we need new leadership. Let's allow the new CEO, Vuyani, Jahana, to stabilize the entity. I heard Honorable Tobias was suggesting that the minister must babysit SAA. I don't think so. If you have got a new CEO, and if Dumi leaves the SAA on the 2nd of September, and then you allow for a stable environment, I think we can then allow them to then present their own financial sustainability mechanism and system. A new CEO is coming to office. I don't think that we must expect that is going to automatically inherit what the failed management has been trying to do. Because Tandi is correct that the goalposts have been shifted from one meeting to another. So today is this plan, tomorrow is this. Every appearance of a committee, there is a new strategy that is being proposed then. So let us allow the new CEO to then draft of course, in consultation with National Treasury, a recovery plan, and then would then interrogate it, and then would then be able to support it, possibly with a board that would be much more reinvigorated to focus in terms of what has to happen at SAA. I think the crisis of SAA has been a crisis of leadership, mostly centered around its chairperson, who intimidates members of parliament, and management, which was not capable enough. And I think that let's allow the new leadership to take the airways forward in a much more. And then I think that one issue that we might want to advise is that there are these genuine concerns that are raised by the cabin crew members at SAA, that perhaps the new CEO should, as amongst of the immediate task, listen to their concerns in terms of what they've been raising for a very long time. And all workers, of course, must be listened to, so that you have got an inspired workforce of the airline, and then we stabilize it to permanent stability. Thank you.
Mr. Mania is gone, so the last questions from Sitole Shope.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you, Minister, for being available in this committee, especially with the announcement of the new CEO. I think this is a step in the right direction. You know, since I came to the National Assembly in 2009, I have fallen in love with reading thoroughly the reports of the Auditor General every year. And there were three things that were consistent. One, the Auditor General complained about leadership. Two, consequence management. And three, compliance with legislation. Those are the three. And I love to research because I'm in appropriation. I love to research on each and every issue that comes my way. The question of SAA, I realized that it was put under Treasury in 2014. And most of the wrong things that were happening, I think they were happening because there was no leadership in Treasury, not in the SAA. That is my conviction. Somebody else has to convince me otherwise. It does not help us as a country to keep on camouflaging that we've got an ailing SAA, wara wara. It's not that. And as long as we talk about untruths, we will never solve this problem. To me, SAA is the most resilient institution that I've ever. I started being a bookkeeper in 1975, and I've done a lot of looking at reports of in the private sector and now. But, you know, an institution that could resist people who want to privatize it, nobody will actually convince me otherwise. I'm actually writing a book, Chairperson, on that issue. The desire to privatize state-owned entities. That is where we are. In February, our committee undertook a study tour to Germany and Sweden. We sat with our counterparts there. We discussed issues. And Germany warned us that, you see, privatization is the way that you must never go. We went on that, and we are regretting, and we are reversing. I just want you, Minister, to remember that at all times. But it pleases me because I can hear from your speeches that I think you don't like to privatize it. And that is what gives me some comfort. But
right, now we're going to break away from that particular hearing to go to the ANC, which is briefing the world and the media on the secret ballot.
The arrangements with Parliament, and also have gone to where his body is in the PAL so that they can make the necessary arrangements for his body to be taken to Mpumalanga. Our sincere condolences again to the Khoza family. Our statement is titled, "We cannot vote in favor of a motion to collapse government." Very simple. We didn't want to be sophisticated. We are not sophisticated. We felt it is important to clarify why the ANC will be voting against the DA-sponsored motion to remove the President of the Republic of South Africa. This coming motion has generated much debate and public interest. Hence, we saw it desirable to upfront clarify our stance on this motion and respond to pronouncements that have been made by the opposition on this particular matter. Some would say that, but you have clarified your stance. Yes, we have, but we did not hold and call for a press conference where we delved into this matter. We did not. We only responded to questions that you would have put to us on the vote of no confidence. First and foremost, we want to acknowledge the difficulties and grievances that have been raised by our people, including our partners in the tripartite alliance, about the state of affairs in some government quarters. Indeed, amongst these that we are not blind to, which are deep-seated grievances that have been raised, relate to the reshuffle of cabinet that matters were raised on. In fact, it's the recent cabinet reshuffle, by the way, that has given rise to this motion that we are going to be attending to this coming Tuesday. The other issue that is in the public domain, and we are not blind to, is the country's downgrading to junk investment status. We are alive to these issues that affect many of our people, particularly the poorest of the poor. Indeed, the leaked emails regarding the notorious Gupta family's influence on government and state capture have been raised as serious and legitimate concerns. Then the unburdening report by the South African Council of Churches that the country has sight of, the No Room to Hide dossier by the Organization Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, the betrayal of the promise report by the State Capacity Research Project. As you will know, these are academics. And all these are centered around the Public Protector's State Captures Report. And all these reports and documents have rightly caused anxiety and displeasure in society. We acknowledge this. As the ANC, we share this discomfort and anger at these revelations, which are continuously unfolding in the public domain. The ANC caucus shares the same aspirations of the people of South Africa concerned South Africans must know that they have an ally in the ANC caucus. And indeed, they don't have an enemy. As the ANC, we intervened on the crisis affecting the South African Broadcasting Corporation, SABC, as you will know. It's common cause, resulting in the removal of the board and the appointment of an interim board. The interim board, as you will know, is working so well to ensure that stability and good governance is restored at the public broadcaster. We equally intervened, as you will also know, in ESCOM, resulting in the rescinding of the reappointment of the former Group Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Brian Molefe, after he had resigned following his involvement in allegations of state capture. Parliament is currently, as you will know, conducting an inquiry, or will soon commence. Steps are at an advanced stage into ESCOM, of which we are confident that inquiry will result in those found of any wrongdoing being taken to task. Other portfolio committees where allegations of wrongdoing have surfaced have also been directed to leave no stone unturned in uncovering those responsible and proposing corrective measures, inclusive of recovering monies siphoned fraudulently from our state institutions, and indeed also referring some of those responsible to our criminal justice system for criminal proceedings. The ANC also raised its discomfort, as you will know, regarding the removal and replacement of former Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene, which caused serious financial turbulence. The intervention of the ANC led to the appointment of the now former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. Though the recent cabinet reshuffle resulted in the removal of Gordhan, his replacement was a subject of intervention by the ANC after various media speculations, we don't know how wrong or right they were, that Mr. Brian Molefe, who is a subject of the public protester state of capture report, will be appointed a replacement. We are raising all these issues to indicate that indeed that the ANC has been responsive to these matters that are causing untold anxiety in the public domain. But we need to do more. Therefore, we fully agree that all matters of public concern and cause of distress to the South African society must be attended to as a matter of urgency. We are in agreement. Further investigations by all arms of state, including the judiciary, must be conducted to unearth how we got to where we are and who is responsible for us being where we are. This will be in keeping with the remedial action of the public protector in her report, The State of Capture. Those found guilty of wrongdoing must face consequences, including prosecution. Therefore, the immediate appointment of a judicial commission of inquiry is of extreme urgency. We must never allow our current irritations to blind us to act in a manner that destroys everything we have built over the 23 years as a young democracy. Voting in favor of this motion will be tantamount to throwing a nuclear bomb at our country. The removal of the president will have disastrous consequences that can only have a negative impact on the people of South Africa. It will result in the entire cabinet having to resign, which will lead to a collapse in government with long-lasting ramifications. It will plunge our country into complete political instability and economic uncertainty. I don't need to be an economist. I don't need to be these people who have ranked us to junk status to know that removal of a person, of a president, will create so much political instability and uncertainty, particularly when the party that the president belongs to has said this should not be done. Because you'll be doing so, thrusting us into an uncertain future that the party that the president comes from would not have prepared for. This will inadvertently negatively affect the poor and the working class the most, as they are dependent on government for their livelihoods. If we are saying we are now at a level of junk status, just imagine what will be the impact of this move in the economic environment. Our view is that it will just be negative. If we are in a technical recession, I can assure you this will be the best way of putting us in a recession. Instead of solving our problems, we will be doing more harm to our country and to our people. This will also set precedents where opposition parties can use parliament, provincial legislatures, and municipal councils and metros to remove a democratically elected government outside of general elections. And I don't believe that that's what South Africa wants, and that's what the majority of South Africans want. Therefore, the removal of the president in parliament is simply not in the best interest of our country. There are those that have emailed us thousands and thousands of emails. Many members of the ANC received thousands and thousands of emails, and they said we must act in the interest of the country. We are doing exactly that. Because doing anything different would be acting not in the interest of the country. By the way, we must not seek easy and short-sighted solutions to difficult political problems. This motion, as you will know, those who are in the political field, is a political ploy by our political nemesis with the sole intention of maximizing their own political gains at the expense of the country. That's what they want to do. The DA wants to be political messiahs and, of course, maximize in their electoral gains, but do so at the expense of bringing the country to collapse. That's what they want to do. ANC members of parliament are an advanced cadreship of the ANC. We want to assure you of that. We did not land here by accident. We landed in these shores and hallowed walls of parliament because our membership and the 11 million people who voted for the ANC believe, and the leadership of the ANC believe, that we have the necessary acumen to create a better life for our people through holding the executive accountable. Otherwise, we'll not be here. That's why we are saying we are an advanced cadreship of the ANC. We will not, with our eyes open, cause the weakening of the state in favor of the opposition. When you weaken the state, when you weaken yourself as an organization, indeed the people who will be beneficiaries of your weakness in a political system in South Africa will be your adversaries. And those adversaries are the people that have proposed this motion. These are the adversaries, the Democratic Alliance. As activists, we will not be part of actions that will bring our country to a brink of collapse. Our decision to vote against this motion must therefore not be seen as defending or protecting any individual. We didn't get into the struggle to protect any individuals. We got into the struggle to serve our people and our country. To this end, we are prepared to protect and defend our country from any misguided actions. We are protecting our country and our hard-won democracy. The claim that seeks to say that not voting with the opposition in this instance would be injudicious, very big English, is very much misguided. In fact, it would be injudicious for ANC MPs to vote with the opposition in collapsing our country. The opposite is true, in fact. Our actions must not be informed by incumbent personalities, but rather what is in the best interest of our country today. We are also protecting our electoral system through these actions, through this vote, by the way, which places the political authority to deploy members of parliament in the respective political parties who contested elections. That's what our political system does. It is a party-based political system. That's all members of parliament from all political parties take their mandate from their political parties. ANC MPs should not be expected to be different from this legal and well-established political norm since 1994. We are not different. In delivering the Constitutional Court judgment on whether the upcoming motion should be by secret ballot or not, Chief Justice Mukweng said, I quote, "The appropriateness of a voting procedure for that motion is particularly important since our electoral system is structured in such a way that it is, broadly speaking, a party, but not a member of parliament that gets voted into parliament." That's the good judge saying. A political party virtually determines who goes to parliament and who is no longer allowed to represent it in parliament. I close quote. If you want to read further, you can. But this is amongst other things that the judge said. The Chief Justice further went on to quote the certificate case where paragraph 77 states, I open quotes, "Under a list system of proportional representation, it is parties that the electorate vote for, and parties which must be accountable to the electorate." I close quote. South Africa's electoral system is not a presidential system, where a president is voted for as an individual, but our system is rather where the party that wins elections deploy its presidential candidate. In the same way, the party will also deploy its members as MPs as well as members of cabinet. It is therefore unthinkable that members who are deployed by a party as its members of parliament would usurp the authority of the party that deployed them and remove another member deployed as a president at the behest of our political adversaries. During one of our debates in the House, I said, only a bewitched party will do so. I'm repeating that. You will have to bewitch us first. It is very hypocritical of the opposition to want ANC members of parliament to defy their party mandate when they do not allow such in their own parties. The DA, and this is public knowledge, suspended 6 councillors in the Cape Town Metro for defying the party mandate on who to vote for at a sub-council meeting in November last year. The DA makes their members of the provincial legislature in the Western Cape sign written allegiance to always follow the party mandate. They don't play. You sign written allegiance that you will follow the party mandate then. The EFF is instituting disciplinary action against its councillors who defied their party mandate in voting for the passing of the budget in Mogale City. While the DA in the same Mogale City forced their councillors to take lie detector tests to unearth a councillor who voted in favor of the removal of a DA mayor. Now, these are things that you know. We are not speaking lies here. The rumor that there are ANC members in our caucus who will vote in favor of this motion is nothing but wishful thinking on the part of the opposition. You know, I've seen and heard other party leaders who are saying there are about 60 members of the ANC who will be putting their vote in the positive bloc. We are saying there is no such. We will vote against this motion because it is a crude and populist attempt to unseat a popularly elected government by the opposition. This motion will be defeated irrespective of whether it is by open or secret ballot. ANC members of parliament can never be participants in the demise of their own government and their own organization. Siyabulela.
Thank you, Chief Whip. That was a long and elaborate statement. We'll take questions starting from, oh, there's already a hand at the back. Okay, we'll start from the right, from my right side, and then after that round, then we'll go to the left. We'll start at the back. Sorry, I forgot your name.
Mike Cohen from Bloomberg News.
Hi, Mike. Then we'll start with Mike, then we'll go around the table.
Jackson, I'm struggling to explain this. The rating agencies, specifically in their downgrade notes, said that one of the major reasons for the downgrades was the current political leadership. How can you say that you're worried if you remove this leadership, it will then result in further downgrades? And how do you explain the idea that every time the notion that the president might be removed results in the rand jumping in value? There doesn't seem to be that kind of concern among the markets and among investors. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Behind the cameras. Hi, Alec.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Annika Larson from ENCA. Mr. Mthembu, you say that the concerns of some of the concerns of the tripartite alliance are serious, and you note those, and that the Gupta email leaks are indeed legitimate. Concerns around those are indeed legitimate. Are you saying then that they are not fake, as Atul Gupta told the BBC, he said the emails are fake? Are you saying that they are indeed, are you convinced that they're real? And if some of your members and the SACP members are deeply concerned, what are you doing? What is the party doing to address this issue? Because clearly you wouldn't be having this press conference unless you were concerned that some of your members are not satisfied with the current presidency. Thanks.
Thank you, Annika. We'll have EWN and then we'll have Paul from News 24.
Chief Whip, yesterday former Tourism Minister Derek Hanekom said that he could safely say that more than 50% of the ANC's MPs were very concerned about the state of the party and wanted urgent action. Is that your understanding of the current situation? Have you received, have you heard from them? Have they explained their grievances? Have they explained to you why they possibly would want to support this motion? And then the second question, you said that voting in favor of this motion would be tantamount to dropping a nuclear bomb on the country, that it would throw the country into disarray. This isn't, South Africa has gone through a period where the president was removed by the ANC. Now, although those circumstances are very different, are you using that as an example of, what might happen? I mean, how do you make such a bold statement that the country is going to be thrown into disarray when we've gone through a process of having a president removed?
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Chief Whip. Paul Herman from News 24. My question is just so that going into the motion, has the party taken any steps to ensure that its MPs will, at the very least, appear on the day? And in the event that a secret ballot is granted, will it be taking measures thereafter to determine if and how the MPs are voted? Does the ANC's constitution allow for that? And will there be any action thereafter?
Thank you. Next.
How many are we taking? Let's take 5, then we'll
yes.
Yes.
You want to take this?
Yeah.
After the finding of the Constitutional Court that the President was in breach of his oath of office in the Nkandla matter, there was a discussion within the ANC. It was debated whether the President should be removed, and it was decided not to do that. If that was, the decision was a different one, if you removed the President, a lot of things that happened since would have been prevented. for instance, the cabinet reshuffle that led to this motion. The fact that you didn't do that placed immense pressure on the ANC MPs, on the ANC caucus in Parliament. Public pressure from families, from the public at large. We're probably going to see a huge march on Tuesday.
We know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you take responsibility for that? For placing your MPs in this position, that they are if there's a secret vote, that they are tempted to remove the president.
Okay. Maybe let's first start there, because that's why we have explained the difference in our political electoral system as a country. We are not a presidential electoral system. We are a party-based electoral system. Now, when you ask all these questions, if we can bear that in mind, and therefore, being a party-based political system simply means that those of us who came to this parliament came through the list of the African National Congress, not in our own steam and name. Not in our own steam and name. But there is no MP in all the benches, by the way, including on the DA benches and any other party that is here in Parliament, that can claim that I'm here in my own steam and name. Therefore, all of us are mandated public representatives. We are mandated. We are mandated to carry the policy positions, policy articulations of our parties as we sit here. And one of those that you will know, as I do, and in fact it's in our own constitution, is that you will not come to Parliament and then opt to work with forces that are opposed to the African National Congress. Let's just first start there. So that we start with the known before we go to the unknown. Let's start with the known. And I would have thought that South Africans know this by heart, that members of the ANC and members of the DA, members of the EFF in this parliament are here at the behest of their parties. And that's what the good Chief Justice said as well. We are here on account of party lists. He said so in his judgment. And you can't change that. You can't change that we are here on account of party lists. No. I'm talking about the party system in South Africa. It is a party-based system. It's parties that stands for elections. But it's then parties that sends people to parliament. It's parties that decides to remove people that they have sent to parliament. You are correct. If a party decided to remove anybody, we have removed many members through the party, by the way. The party has removed many members over time, including the president, a former president who was removed by the party, not by people who do not have that political authority. The President Thabo Mbeki was not removed by members of parliament, please. He was requested to step aside by the leadership of the party, the National Executive Committee. In this instance, the National Executive Committee has not requested President Zuma to step down. It has not. There is no such a decision by the leadership of the party that has sent us here. But let's come to the second issue. It is not at the behest of the ANC members that you have a motion of no confidence.
This motion of no confidence, that's why we should not have amnesia. This motion of no confidence comes from the opposition. The opposition who have made no bones about removing the ANC from government. Is that opposition? They are our nemesis. They are our political adversary. They have made no bones. Whether you talk of the DA, whether you talk of the EFF, in fact, the DA has now even taken the battle even higher. They said, with the removal of the president and the government, parliament must also fall. Now, you then say, members of the ANC must depend and align themselves to the motion of an opposition party. And if they act in favor of this motion, they will then be acting in favor of the constitution. We disagree. We disagree. In fact, they'll be acting in favor of strengthening the opposition party. Simple. In fact, the DA's tail will be up there if this motion succeeds. In fact, there'll be the people who will be going to the electoral bank smiling. Because it's them that would have removed the president, it's them that have a motion that intends removing the president on the order paper. Not the ANC. Not the ANC comrades who have serious issues that we have raised ourselves. There is no ANC motion, there's no member of the ANC who has a motion that we must remove the president. The motion comes from the opposition. And that opposition in the South African ANC from government. It has not made any bones about this, and we therefore do not believe it will be in the best interest first of our government. Because indeed this opposition wants to remove the ANC government. Now, who in his right mind from the ANC desks will then assist such an opposition from removing its government? Nobody in his right mind will do so. You are saying, should we have removed the president? I wouldn't like to get into that discussion. There have been discussions in the ANC constitutional structures. I am part of those structures, and I respect those discussions. I will not ventilate those discussions in this instance. I believe the Secretary General can assist you in ventilating discussions in constitutional structures of the ANC. But be that as it may, the NEC of the ANC has said, ANC members that we have deployed in the Parliament of the Republic, you are not authorized to remove the president by the ANC that has deployed you. That is a decision. Outside of that decision, by the way, even the ANC caucus itself, I'm coming to perhaps responding to what Derek Anikom says. The ANC caucus has deliberated on this matter not once, not twice, on its own. The first time with the Secretary General in attendance, with the Deputy Secretary General in attendance, with the Treasurer General in attendance, and with the National Chair in attendance. In fact, when they came the first time, they just threw this matter to caucus. By then, the National Executive Committee had not even met. They threw this matter and said, here is an issue. The DA is proposing a motion of no confidence in the President of the Republic, President Jacob Zuma. What do you say? I was part of that caucus. There were deliberations in that caucus without being led to any particular direction. That caucus said, we will not be led by the opposition in this parliament. on a political matter as grave as this one. They said so. Because that caucus understood that the people who will emerge victorious and beneficiaries of this motion will not be the people of South Africa, but beneficiaries of this motion will indeed be the opposition party. The ANC members of parliament understood in that discussion that we cannot, with our eyes open, as we say in the statement, assist our nemesis to remove our government from power. And our constitution is clear. Once you remove the president, the government follows. No question about it. So you would have removed government. You would have collapsed government. But you would not have done so because you have got good reasons yourself. You would have done so because you are supporting an opposition that wants to weaken you. Now, it's only a bewitched people that will do so. If there was a motion by the ANC, or we deliberated on a motion in caucus that we want to bring ourselves, by the way, and then we decided to agree on that motion, we would have taken that motion to the leadership of the ANC. We would have done so. But from where we are sitting, because when you ask these questions, you also don't put the rider that this motion that we are about is proposed by an opposition that is opposed to ANC and its policies. Totally opposed. An opposition that has not made any bones about removing the ANC government. An opposition that has not made any bones about even further weakening the ANC. We have said ourselves we are very weak at the moment. There are many things that we must do to strengthen ourselves. But the oppositions are also capitalizing on our weaknesses to further weaken us. One of the sure areas of weakening our government, of collapsing our government, and perhaps even causing serious fracture in the African National Congress will be this action. These members of the ANC in parliament are fully aware of these matters. They will therefore not venture. These concerns that have been raised, there are no concerns by investors. There are concerns by investors of the various political noises in the country. They have said so themselves. And these political noises emanate from what we are saying in our statement, amongst other state capture. Amongst others, the abuse of our state institutions by people who fraudulently draw money, use them as spaza shops. And we are saying we must act on these issues, all of us. We are asked, what are we going to do? We have already started. The Public Enterprise Committee here in Parliament has called ESCOM to come and account. And we are saying any other SOEs or departments where there are red lights flickering, we have directed our portfolio committees to call all those, particularly those who account to us, to come to us and account. That's the best we can do as Parliament, so that we are not found guilty of not having done our job as members of Parliament. That's the first issue. But the second issue, we are saying indeed, a judicial commission of inquiry must be instituted as of last yesterday. As of last yesterday. That's what we are saying as an ANC caucus. And this matter has also been agreed to, by the way, by the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress. We are saying the Judicial Commission of Inquiry should step in, and we must delve deeper into all these horror stories that we are hearing. Some we are hearing through email leaks, some we are hearing through these reports of Outer, some we are hearing through the report of the SABC, some through the report of our academics, and indeed, some through the report of the public protector titled State of Capture. And in that report, the public protector herself said, can we get to the bottom of these issues? And this is what we are saying. Let's get to the bottom of these issues. If anybody is found to have caused us to arrive at this untenable situation, let those people suffer the consequences. But you can't do so until you do the investigation. Whether your investigation is through a judiciary inquiry or through what we are doing here in Parliament, by all means. But we are saying delve deeper into these issues. State of party and government, that there are 50%, well, I don't know. I can't respond to what Hanekom said. I wasn't there. But all I know is that members of the ANC who are in our caucus, in their own mouth, said that they will not be voting with the opposition to remove their government. That's what they said. So I don't know where Hanekom would have got his sums from, but from where I am seated, I am head of that caucus. I lead that caucus. But of course, these members of caucus have also raised their serious concerns. And these concerns are what is covered in our statement. We are not saying that everything is honky-dory. We're not saying so. We are saying, indeed, there are serious issues. There are legitimate issues, legitimate concerns by civil society, by the public of South Africa. Where we differ is when you are asking us to support the opposition to remove an ANC government. That's where we differ. We are not differing that we must delve and investigate all these allegations of state capture. We are not differing on that. If at the end of those investigations, whoever is then found must suffer the consequences. If they must go to court, they must go to court and answer for their dastardly deeds. If they need to be fired as members of parliament, then the party that brought them in here must do so. But you must start a process of investigation, not through innuendo and generalization. Say that we must remove a president and you allow an opposition to lead the charge. Thank you.
There was the last question on the readiness. We'll come back to it.
What?
The state of readiness.
Email leaks, so you didn't answer that question.
No. We have spoken to the Gupta email leaks. We are saying the concerns of the South African public are legitimate. The concerns around even the Gupta leaks, these concerns are legitimate. Therefore, all that you need to do is to investigate and get to the bottom of what is said. As to whether I'm not the person who can say whether there is truth or not truth. I can't get to answer that question around the emails. And I'm not a Gupta member. Therefore, I would know. But there are serious allegations that are flowing from these leaks, and our view is that they need investigation. Similarly, there are serious allegations that have been thrown at the family itself, the Gupta family, through the public protector report, through the academics report, through the outer report. We need to investigate through a credible mechanism. And my own view is that a credible mechanism that will make all of us to bring this matter to pass will be a judicial commission of inquiry. That's why we are saying there shouldn't be any delay in instituting that judicial commission of inquiry. But then to jump and say that to solve all these problems, ANC members of parliament must vote with the opposition, we think you have it wrong. Because the opposition have their own reasons. They don't have the goodness of the people of the country in their reasons. Their reasons are political, their reasons are self-centered, their reasons are getting the ANC out of power. These are their reasons. Don't want us as ANC members of parliament to assist these opposition parties to get our own government out of power. Where our own government is acting out of line, let's use the constitution to bring our own government into line.
Thank you, Chief Whip. So we'll basically start from Marianne and end with Bulelani.
Good morning. Clarifications, I think, largely. One, when you say the ANC is concerned and feels society's worries and anxiety and anger about this, precisely what ANC are you talking about? Two, would the ANC consider bringing a motion, a constitutional amendment to remove the oath of office that every MP swears? Because clearly you're saying the oath of office that we are here to uphold, defend and serve the Constitution means nothing if it clashes with ANC party political issues. On that point, would you please also clarify why the ANC continues publicly to misrepresent what the Constitutional Court said on June 22? And I refer you specifically to clause paragraph 83 or 85, in which the Constitutional Court made it very clear that with the issues to vote of conscience, the oath of office that MPs swear to uphold and serve the Constitution is key. And that if there is a conflict between a party political matter and the interests of the countries, those who swear that oath of office are bound to serve the country. Recognizing that we have a party political system, the Constitutional Court goes on to say, yes, but a key factor is not the party, because South Africans cast their ballots for political parties on the basis of lists that clearly identify who their public representatives are. Also, one last question with regards to what you tout as Parliament's role in investigating. To date, of the 4 committees that have been directed by Frolik to do investigations, Public Enterprises is the only committee that is actually moving. Home Affairs accepted a government official's